In November of the 43 BC year, while visiting one of his country villas in Tusculum with his brother Quintus, Marcus Tullius Cicero received unexpected news. At a meeting referred to as the Bononia Pact, Marcus Antonius, Marcus Aemilius Lepidus, and Rome's new Caesar had allied with one another and were now marching legions to the capital. Cicero's Philippic speeches, written and preached to the Senate as moral justification to label Marcus Antonius a public enemy, to divide and weaken the Caesarian party, and to simultaneously move legions into the camp of the liberators, had failed miserably. As Caesar had once done, Cicero had cast his dice, yet chance had denied him the restoration of Rome's republic as his prize. Preceding the newly aligned Caesarian commander's march against Rome, a kill squad of legionaries entered the city. The first to be struck down was a tribune of the plebs named Salvius. Salvius had fought against Cicero's initial attempts to name Marcus Antonius an enemy of the state, but following Antonius's defeat at Mutina, had suddenly turned coat and sided with Cicero, voting the fleeing commander hostis. Knowing that with Antonius, Lepidus, and Caesar on their way to Rome, he would have few future chances to indulge in certain luxuries, Salvius threw a dinner party and invited many guests. As his friends dined on their exquisite meals, legionaries burst into Salvius's home. When the startled guests jumped from the dining couches, attempting to scatter, the head legionary, with his weapon drawn, forced them back into their seats. After threatening anyone who moved with the same fate they were about to witness, the legionary grabbed Salvius by the hair and dragged him across the dinner table. As his horrified friends watched, stupefied and silent, Salvius, an inviolable tribune of the plebs, was beheaded. The kill squad had been assigned 17 persons to target for death before the arrival of Rome's new triumvirs. Topping the list was Lucius Julius Caesar, the maternal uncle of Marcus Antonius, who had joined Cicero in vehemently calling for his nephew to be named hostis. Lucius Aemilius Paulus, the brother of Marcus Aemilius Lepidus, another who had voted in alignment with the father of the Republic, also appeared on the list, as well as Cicero, his brother Quintus, and both of their sons. In Rome, word spread quickly of soldiers carrying out brutal executions of citizens. Having no knowledge of the who or the why, the people panicked, fearing being personally targeted. Some hid in the tiny space beneath their roof tiles, while others ran blindly, hoping to find sanctuary within the homes of friends. Some senators, not quite so ignorant of the situation, attempted to burn their own homes to the ground, rather than surrender them to the oncoming Caesarian commanders. In the night air, a cacophony of shrieks and screams was mixed with the mournful lamentations of those weeping over slain family members. In an attempt to calm the chaos, the consul Quintus Pedius sent out his heralds, who urged the citizenry to retreat to their homes and wait there until morning, when more information would be made available to them. Once the sun rose, Quintus Pedius, the cousin of Rome's new Caesar, climbed the rostra. Gazing into the fearful stares and red-rimmed eyes of the traumatized people, Pedius assured them that they were not part of a political purge. Only 17 men had been named as enemies, and only those 17 people would perish. Everyone else, Pedius pledged, was safe. The following day, Caesar entered the city with a single legion and his praetorian cohort. It seems Quintus Pedius may have spoken out of turn, as come the night Quintus Pedius died of what was termed political fatigue. The next day, Marcus Antonius entered the city, also accompanied by 1 legion and his praetorian cohort. And on the third day, Marcus Aemilius Lepidus Pontifex Maximus joined his fellow triumvirs in the same fashion. On November 27th, with their 3 legions now stationed strategically throughout the city, Antonius, Lepidus, and Caesar convened a public assembly. As a solution for managing the present disorder, a tribune of the plebs named Publius Titius announced legislation which legalized the new magisterial offices created by Antonius, Lepidus, and Caesar at the Bononia Pact meeting. Offering no senatorial debate, and without fixing a future date during which time the public could read the legislation, an immediate vote was demanded under force of arms. The lex Tiscia passed, and Antonius, Lepidus, and Caesar were confirmed by the Senate for 5-year terms as triumvirs for organizing the Republic. On the same day, Marcus Antonius made a lengthy speech to the people of Rome, pointing out that the very men who had killed Julius Caesar were those he had, in his mercy, forgiven. Declaring war against Marcus Junius Brutus and Gaius Cassius Longinus, who were now using the provinces Caesar had granted them to steal Rome's tribute in order to levy legions and raze cities to the ground, Marcus Antonius revealed that they would leave behind no enemies to patiently await an opportunity to seize the state. That same night, with legions covering each of Rome's gates and stationed at the harbours, 130 additional names were prescribed. Written on white boards, they were posted in the Forum Romanum. To freedmen or Roman citizens who produced the severed heads of any prescribed men on the list, the state offered 25,000 Attic drachmae. Slaves of the prescribed who turned in their masters were offered their freedom, 10,000 Attic drachmae, and the rights to their former master's Roman citizenship. Informers were also rewarded with financial gain, while those who harbored or aided anyone on the proscription list would find themselves proscribed as well. As masters fell on their knees before slaves they had formerly mistreated to beg for their lives, and as senators disguised themselves as merchants, priests, and foreigners in their desperation to sneak out of the city, Marcus Tullius Cicero embraced his brother Quintus, preparing to part ways. Cicero, who had already sent his son ahead to Greece to join Cassius and Brutus, now intended to follow. Quintus and his son would also join, but only after secretly returning to Rome to secure their valuables. Once Quintus and his son reached Rome, they slipped safely inside his villa on Palatine Hill, nearly unnoticed, but one of his house slaves informed on him. Quintus Tullius Cicero, who had served as a legate under Julius Caesar during his conquest of Gaul, now begged the arriving legionaries to execute him first, finding it unbearable to witness the beheading of his son. But his son begged the same consideration from the legionaries, equally unable to witness his father's execution. The soldiers then divided into 2 groups. Granting both men their wishes, Quintus Cicero and his son were executed simultaneously, their heads then decapitated per the state's requirement for payment. Meanwhile, from Tusculum, Cicero reached the coastal town of Astera and set sail for Greece, but bad weather forced his ship back to shore. Cicero then decided to return to Rome, convinced that Caesar, who had been his ally, would save him. Approximately 10 miles into his journey, however, the father of the Republic lost his confidence. Suddenly recalling all the letters written him by Brutus from Macedonia, warning him not to trust Gaius Octavius, the orator turned back. Cicero then returned to the coast before making his way to his villa in the town of Formiae. On December 7th, Cicero left his villa in a litter, heading to the harbour, where he intended to board a vessel sailing for Greece. Surrounded by a large retinue of servants and retainers, Cicero's journey was in progress when his party happened upon an execution squad led to the area by a shoemaker who despised Cicero on account of his friendship with the late Publius Clodius. Leading the execution squad was a military tribune named Gaius Papilius Lenus, who had been accused of murdering his father some years earlier, but who had been successfully defended by Cicero in the courts. Seeing that Cicero's retinue outnumbered his own forces, Lenus shouted into the trees, "Centurions from the back, this is the place." Believing there were more soldiers than there were, most of Cicero's party panicked and scattered. Realizing he was captured, Cicero ordered his men to let down his litter. "I go no further," said Cicero, as Lenus approached his litter with a centurion named Herennius. Cicero then leaned his head out of his litter. "There is nothing proper about what you are doing, soldier," Cicero chastised, "but do try to kill me properly." Herennius then slew Cicero, and Gaius Papilius Lenus cut off the orator's head with 3 blows and some sawing through due to his lack of experience. By order of Marcus Antonius, Lenus also cut off the very hands that had composed the 14 Philippic speeches against Antonius, and returned them to Rome. In the Forum Romanum, the new triumvir, Marcus Antonius, mounted Cicero's head on a spike, and nailed his hands to the rostra. So overjoyed was Antonius to receive the hands and head of his enemy Cicero that he multiplied the standard fee for a prescribed head 10 times, paying Gaius Papilius Linus 250,000 Attic drachmae. Of Marcus Tullius Cicero, the historian Velleius Paterculus lamented, "When Cicero was beheaded, the voice of the people was severed." But in his own words, written to a friend named Petus in February of 43 BC, while desperately trying to rally the Senate back to power, Cicero said, "You may convince yourself of this, that day and night my one principle of action, my one anxiety is to secure the safety and freedom of my fellow citizens. Never do I miss an opportunity in the way of advising, acting, or looking ahead. In short, my spirit is such that, if in this my charge and ministration I am called upon to lay down my life, I think I shall have accounted for myself not without glory. Farewell, again and again." This concludes our 7th series and the political manoeuvring which took place in the wake of Caesar's assassination. Join us for Series 8, where we will examine the new Rome under the rule of the Second Triumvirate. Thank you for watching.